Hey everybody, welcome back, and welcome to episode 4 of our Nile Monitor series. Today we're going to be talking about socialization, and I want to start off with a little demonstration to kind of set the tone as to what we can expect. So you won't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. So when we talk about socializing lizards, I think this is what most people get in their heads. I've got my Argentine black and white tegu back here. She's always covered in mud because she gets down there and burrows every day. Don't ya? And I think this is what most people really get in their heads when they start thinking about a socialized lizard. Tegus, they're really popular pets. And it's because of their demeanor. You can see she is just as relaxed and inquisitive as you could ever want to be. She's had a little bit of blueberries in there to munch on. She's been basking a little bit. She's nice and warm. And this animal is never one to stay down where she's easy to work with. But she's all warm and she's full of energy right now. But you can see I'm not in the least bit worried about this girl. She just wants to get out and explore and run around. Now we're not going to always see that when we're talking about Nile monitors. So we're going to go ahead and put her back and go take a look at how things get a little bit more complicated when we start getting into those bigger monitor lizards. Ain't that right, girl? You're such a good girl. Come on, squirrely. Now, before we go in and we start working with Niles some, there's a couple considerations that are kind of unique to Niles, especially even among monitor lizards. The environment that they're in is really a lot more dangerous for them. Being a lot of times in terrestrial areas, you know, the lions, hyenas, everything you can think of out there in the savannah that would want to do harm to them. Niles have got a lot more edgier personality to them. And, you know, as with everything else, you can kind of breed those traits. If you can't breed them out entirely, you know, you can kind of dull them down a little bit. One thing that we see pretty commonly is we get a lot of wild caught Nile monitors. A lot of people going out harvesting them, putting them in a pet trade. And we are starting to see more captive breeding of them, which is really cool because a Nile, you know, their size is still, you know, pretty manageable. They'll get pretty big. Niles over here, he's pushing 6 feet right now, so he's not a small lizard by any stretch of the imagination. But they don't get quite as big as Asian water monitors. So they're a little bit more manageable in that respect. But when it comes to their personality, they're in a class all their own. So you guys are going to notice, kind of like with my snakes too, when I first come into his enclosure, I don't just come right in, snatch him up straight away, start interacting with him. I just allow myself to be here, allow him to see me, let him start to get a feel for what's going on and so forth. I've got his harness here, and I know he recognizes it. Don't you, bud? But he seems like he's in a really good mood today, so this might be pretty good. He's got some, I know you can't see him down there in the tub right now, but you guys will have plenty of time to see him as he comes out. But one of the things that you see a lot, and I think this is the same with large constrictors, monitor lizards, and so forth, they're all real cute and they're real easy when they're babies. Everybody loves to, you know, get the little babies and get them crawling around on them. And kind of like the same with large constrictors, you know, once that snake starts getting 12, 14, 16 feet long, now the stakes go up a little bit. And you've got to be a little bit more careful. You've got to make sure that you're handling them right. And that really goes kind of tenfold for something like a Nile monitor. Because, you know, when these guys are babies, they're not bad. He wasn't bad to work with at all as a baby. Very food motivated, so any interaction that I had with food there, he was all over it. And now, as he gets a little bit older, he is very territorial. like his enclosure changes and so forth that we talked about previously. He didn't really adjust well. It takes him a long time to get used to a new environment. So it's that natural, apprehensive, defensive nature that really kicks in those times. So now I'm not going to have him out there too long, because we have had these last couple days have just been excruciatingly hot and humid out here. So we're going to get him out for a little while. But, just like any other animal, reptiles can be really susceptible to high heat. Right now, I think it's between 85 and 90 outside, which isn't too bad. So we'll get him out for a little while. Now, I've got a couple harnesses for him. The favorite one that I like to use is this one that's got the loop that just goes around his head, and then the strap that goes around his body. We don't, I've got this thing on him when I take him out, just so that he doesn't get away from me. It's not to lead him around. It's not to, it's not necessarily to restrain him and fight with him, because if he gets down on the ground and starts fighting, I'm not going to depend on this harness. I'm going to get down with him. I'm going to get my hands on him and get him calmed down, instead of just keeping him on the end of the leash like that. You really don't want to be jerking him around by the leash. This thing's still going to sit under their throat. You don't want to hurt him. But you'll find with him, once we get him outside, he does pretty good. So, what do you think, buddy? You ready to go do this? And it's real easy to just slide that thing on him when he's in the tub like that. You'll notice a couple things when I pick him up. One of the things that I'm doing is holding him right behind his front legs, and then I've got my hand on his tail right here, because these back legs he's going to use to try and push off. And right here, that's where you end up getting cut up most of the time. So he doesn't particularly care for being held, but there's times that he's got to be. So I just try and keep him close, keep him supported, and try not to fight him too much. And we're going to go ahead and walk him outside and move the camera out and all that stuff, so that you guys can see what his demeanor turns into once we get him outside, get him on the ground. Go ahead, buddy. All right. Okay. So we've got him out now. Now you guys will notice he's got his mouth open just a little bit, kind of gaping. That's one of the things that you got to be really careful of when you're bringing your animals outside in the summertime, is they can get exhausted, they can overheat, just like we can. He's sitting there right now, not necessarily because he's just wanting to hang out. He's sitting there because he's a little tired. As soon as he first comes out, gets a little bit anxious until he starts to get more comfortable in his surroundings, and he's getting there. So he put up a little bit of a fight and kept trying to go back inside, and I finally got him brought out here, and now he's just kind of taking a break because he's tired of fighting, resting, checking out his environment and so forth. And this is all stuff that's just so important for these guys. You can't keep them in that cage 24/7, 7 days a week. This is the stuff that they really need to keep their mind active, to stay healthy. They get some natural sunlight, and they get a lot of really good interaction. So, and I'm still at the point where I'm waiting for him to start enjoying himself. This is where it's really important to be able to read your animal's behavior, because right now he's not really happy. You know, he's still a little bit stressed out from being outside. He just came out of his water, which is a little bit cooler. Now he's in a warmer environment, and it's taken him some time to adjust. His body temperature's got to find that equilibrium. You know, he'll get a little bit warmer, get a little bit more active, and right now he's just kind of collecting himself. What I'm waiting for before I really start interacting with him a whole lot is I really want to see that nice, slow, deliberate head movement. I want to see that tongue going out. That means that he's starting to explore, he's starting to look around, he's starting to get comfortable enough to where he can do that. Right now he's just kind of grumpy. There we go. See, that's what we're looking for. Now once he starts doing that, then I can start interacting with him a little bit, and I know it's not going to stress him out. So let's go for a walk. He always walks back towards the house. He wants to find the foliage and stuff like that. See, when I pick him up and move him, you gotta fight with him a little bit sometimes. Oh, and he got it. And these are all the interactions that you just gotta have repeatedly with them, and so that they're comfortable with you, and you're comfortable enough to be able to manage them, knowing that they're not going to come at you. So, see, he started to turn his head towards me, and I did the same thing as I would do with a snake. As he turned his head, I just turned him. you guys can see, he's starting to get a little bit warm, starting to get a little bit tired. So we're going to go ahead and take him back inside and get ready to wrap up. So it's pretty warm out there, as you can see. First thing he does when he gets back in, runs his butt straight into the tub. That right, buddy? He does love his water. Hey, bud. Doing good? Did you have fun? You know, one thing that I do with him too, and you always hear about not coming in over top of their heads. When they start getting a little bit bigger, you got to be really careful coming in under their in front of their mouth. You know, that's what we try and do with the younger ones, so that they see us coming and they're not afraid. Him, I don't want to come in right in front of his mouth. Even if he doesn't mean to be mean about it, he'll, you know, he could get a wild hair and decide that he wants to take a pop at me. But one thing with these guys that I really can't emphasize enough is you see how every time I start and end an interaction with him, he's in his tub. These guys love their water. It's a temperature regulation thing for them. It's a security thing for them. You know, in the wild, if they've got something chasing them, they can jump into the water and disappear and stay down there for a very long time. So when you get these guys' habitats set up, you know, I would really like to have something twice as big as this with a tub twice as big as this for him to swim around in. But for the time being, this is enough for him. He sleeps in there every night. You will hardly ever see him sleeping anywhere except inside his tub. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever come down here one night and seen him sleeping anywhere other than in his tub. Kind of to summarize today, I just wanted to show what it's like handling a tolerant Nile Monitor. By no means is he a puppy dog. We have a pretty good relationship. Like I said, he hasn't tried to bite me in like 2 years, 3 years maybe. He's done really well. Today, even with all of the jostling and handling and having him in positions that he didn't want to be in, the only casualty was my shirt and a little scratch on my arm. And that was all unintentional. That's just, you know, those claws that he's got trying to hang on. And kind of like what we talked about too. You know, you'll see we get some scratches working with him and so forth. I just can never bring myself to work with these guys with gloves on. For me, like I said, I think it's a way of keeping ourselves honest and making sure that we're showing the animal due respect. If we've got gloves on, it's a little easier to not worry about what we're doing because we're not afraid of getting hurt. Working with these guys barehanded, you pay attention and you make sure that you're not, restraining the animal more than is necessary. Just like you seen out there, I'd had him up, and as he started to turn around a little bit, as his head started to turn back towards me, I did the same thing that I would do with a snake, and that's just rotate my whole body around and shift his focus away. And it's just subtle things like that, working with these guys, that can make the difference between having a good experience and sitting here like this at the end of it. Had I not done that, maybe he was just getting frustrated enough in that moment that he was getting ready to turn around and take a pop at me. I don't know, and I didn't want to find out. So that's why I redirected him the way I did. There's a very good possibility that he could have been like, okay, dude, you need to let me down. Snap. Gotten a hold of my nose or something, which would have been really unfortunate. The last time I was bit by him was when I just came into the enclosure cold, picked him up, set him on my shoulder, and he bit the back of my spine and had the whole spine in his mouth and stayed that way for about 2 or 3 minutes. Was his way of saying, don't just come in here and snatch me up. So ever since then, I've never just come in and snatched him up. I did just like we did in the beginning here. Came in, sat with him for a little while, let him figure out what was going on. And, all you got to do is just really be mindful and respectful of these guys and pay attention to them. They don't want to hurt you. But the thing to keep in mind about Niles is they are not the least bit afraid to hurt you. These animals are naturally really courageous. You've seen in previous videos where they're fending off lions, hyenas, any number of things out on the savannah. And they certainly am not afraid of a person when it comes time to fight. Or if he's really grumpy and he doesn't want to be messed with, he's not the least bit shy about throwing that tail up at him. There you go. It's about time you come up. And see, I don't know if you noticed or not, one thing that's a really good sign when you're working with these guys is when their tongue starts to slide over the side of their mouth. You're ready to eat, ain't you? But again, too, this is what I was talking about not going in front of him. I don't go in over front of him. I've got him conditioned so that I can come in over top of his head and it doesn't scare him. Because this is the safest way to come in. If I want to interact with him, if I want to start touching him and so forth, like I said, there's the train of thought where anything over their head is going to frighten them and they get that defensive reaction. But if you work with your animals and you kind of desensitize them to that, that's really the safest thing to do. You even seen, a few months ago, Keenan was out there with his Asian water monitors. Came in with his fist right in front of her, and she got a hold of him. And that's a animal he's raised for years. And it's the same thing with him. Something tweaks, something gets their attention, you go in like that. There's always that chance that they'll get a hold of you. So I like to go in like this, get them used to me coming in over. Look at that. Coming in over his head like that to pay attention to him, and you even got that little side tongue out of him. So it's always a work in progress with these guys. All it takes is really managing your expectations. Don't let yourself get frustrated if they're not warming up to you the way you think they should. When you've got one of these animals and you raise it and it's to the point where you can interact with them and carry them around, move them as you need to, and they're not snapping and biting and thrashing and so forth, it's really a good place to be with him. I don't expect him to be a puppy dog. He's a monitor lizard. And we've got that agreement. I respect him. He doesn't bite me. Everybody's happy. So we're going to let him relax now. he did really good. Got outside, had some fun. I've got to go clean my retic enclosure because while we were sitting here talking, she flipped her water bowl over. But I don't know. The long and short of this whole thing is, guys, just before you get one of these little babies, just realize that you're going to end up having your hands full. You're going to have an animal that shreds you on a good day when you interact with it. And they require a lot of attention and understanding and patience. And just make sure that that's the stuff that you're ready for. Because, like I said, those little babies are going to become a handful in a really short order. You know, you're going to need the cage that you can get into with them and sit with them. Like this one. There's so much stuff that goes into it. So don't take it lightly. It can be done, but you got to make sure that you study and you do your research and you're able to get over your fears of working with these animals and build that relationship, build that trust with them. When you do, they're just awesome to work with. So I'm out of here. I'm going to go change shirts, get the sewing kit out, get the enclosure clean. Don't forget, guys, get subscribed to the channel. Also, we've got channel membership programs. We've got the Patreon out there. Absolutely encourage everybody to jump on board with that as well. And I may actually go out after this and do some filming with Monty because I know she'd eaten last week. She's telling me she wants to get out and do something, so maybe we'll go take her out and do some handling. But you guys have an outstanding day, and we'll see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.